Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel. We're now in the middle of a heated debate sweeping the nation. The bill, introduced by Representative Stephen Horsford, called the Tipped Income Protection and Support Act, aims to eliminate taxes on tips and ban the $2.13 per hour minimum wage for tipped workers, a rate unchanged since 1991. Supported by Nevada representatives, the bill seeks to aid nearly 6 million U.S. workers reliant on tips. As you may know, tipping in America is practically an unwritten rule. Americans love to tip, and it's a defining cultural trait. The moment I stepped into the airport, I gave $2 to the porter who helped with my luggage. At restaurants, you're expected to tip 15 to 20% of the bill's total. In this video, join me, Mr. Know-It-All, as we explore how tipping has become such a crucial part of life in America, how it shapes the lives of millions. Get ready for a journey through history, culture, and controversy. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's dive in. The origin of tipping in America. So, where did tipping in America come from? Let's rewind. Unlike many countries where tipping is merely a polite gesture, in America, it's almost a way of life. The story begins in the post-Civil War era, around the 1860s, after enslaved African Americans were freed. Service industries like restaurants and hotels started hiring newly freed black workers, often paying them little to no base wage, expecting them to rely on tips from white customers. This system was exploitative from the start, as tips were inconsistent and often influenced by racial biases. By the 1880s, black workers, especially women, made up nearly half of the service industry workforce, working 13 to 14 hours a day in grueling conditions, with their income dependent on the unpredictable generosity of customers. However, tipping wasn't universally embraced. In the early 20th century, it sparked heated debates. Some saw it as a way to reward good service, while others called it un-American, arguing it created a servile class dynamic. Between 1909 and 1915, 6 states even attempted to ban tipping, but these bans didn't last long. By the 1920s, tipping had become the norm, especially in restaurants and hotels. When the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 established a federal minimum wage, tipped workers were excluded, cementing a two-tier wage system where they relied on tips to survive. This laid the foundation for the tipping culture we know today. The evolution of tipping in America. Fast forward to 1966, when the federal minimum wage for tipped workers was set at $2.13 per hour, with the expectation that tips would bring their earnings up to at least the standard minimum wage, currently $7.25 since 2009. Employers could claim a tip credit to cover the gap, meaning they paid less out of pocket. This system made tips a lifeline for servers, bartenders, and others, but it also created instability. A bad night with stingy customers could leave workers with almost nothing. Studies, like those from the Economic Policy Institute, show that tipped workers face higher poverty rates and wage theft, with women and minorities often hit hardest due to discriminatory tipping practices. Over time, tipping became a major cultural phenomenon. It's no longer limited to restaurants, cafes, delivery apps, and even retail stores now prompt for tips. Americans spend about $40 billion annually on tipping, and it has become a social expectation, with 15 to 20% of the bill considered the norm. But not everyone is on board. By 2024, a Bankrate survey found that 35% of Americans felt tipping culture had spiraled out of control, with tip creep creating pressure to tip everywhere, from fast food counters to grocery stores. Some states, like California and Washington, have eliminated the tip credit system, requiring tipped workers to be paid the full state minimum wage before tips, proving businesses can thrive without relying on customer generosity. The impact of tipping on American life. Tipping is more than just spare change, it has shaped how Americans interact. For workers, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, a good tipping night can far exceed earnings from a standard minimum wage job, especially at upscale restaurants. Servers at high-end venues might pocket hundreds of dollars in a single shift. But the downside is brutal, income fluctuates wildly, and workers often endure harassment or poor treatment with a smile to secure tips. For customers, tipping can feel like a tax. You're not just paying for your meal, you're subsidizing someone's wages. X posts in 2025 show people complaining about bills with auto-added gratuity. Tipping also reflects deeper inequalities. For example, black servers often receive lower tips due to biases, as noted by the Center for American Progress. It's a system where your income can hinge on a customer's mood, race, or generosity. Yet, it's so ingrained in American culture that many don't question it, even though countries like Japan view tipping as rude or unnecessary. The debate on eliminating the minimum wage for tipped employees in 2025. Now, let's discuss 2025 and the debate about eliminating the minimum wage specifically for tipped employees. In Washington, D.C., Initiative 82, passed in 2022, aimed to phase out the tipped minimum wage by 2027, raising servers' wages to match the city's standard minimum of $17.50 by July 2025. But in June 2025, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser proposed repealing Initiative 82, citing a study claiming it cost workers $12 million due to reduced hours or job losses. The Washington Post called abolishing the tipped minimum wage a mistake, arguing it harms both restaurants and workers. This sparked a firestorm of controversy. Workers and advocates, like One Fair Wage, pushed back hard. Protests erupted, with activists disrupting D.C. council meetings, calling the repeal a betrayal. They argued a stable base wage protects workers from unpredictable tips and discriminatory practices. Councilmember Brianne K. Nadeau emphasized that workers had relied on the promised wage increase. On the other side, restaurant owners and some workers worried higher wages would lead to pricier menus, fewer shifts, or closures, especially for small businesses. X posts reflect the divide. Some praise states like California for fair wage systems, while others defend tipping as a way to reward good service. Nationally, the Raise the Wage Act of 2025 proposes lifting the federal minimum wage to $17 by 2030 and eliminating the tipped minimum wage, potentially boosting earnings for 22.2 million workers by $70 billion annually, per the Economic Policy Institute. But industry groups warn of economic fallout, like job losses or higher consumer costs. Reactions from workers and the public. So, how are workers responding? It's complicated. Servers at high-end restaurants often prefer the tipping system, where they can earn significant sums on busy nights. But those at smaller venues or with less generous customers want a guaranteed wage. The fear of losing tips fuels opposition from some, while others see a base wage as a safety net. Public sentiment is equally divided. Some Americans are fed up with tipping culture, wanting businesses to pay fair wages, while others view tipping as a personal way to reward service. Protests in D.C. highlight how heated this issue is. Workers feel their livelihoods are at stake, while consumers complain about rising costs. The 2025 debate over the tipped minimum wage is a clash of fairness, tradition, and economics. The exploitative roots of tipping still echo today, and replacing base wages with tips could deepen instability for workers while adding to public frustration. What do you think? Should we keep tipping culture or move to a fair wage system? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and let's keep the conversation going. See you next time with Mr. Know-It-All.